This is Pokemon Emerald Legacy. It's a ROM hack that my team has spent over 5,000 hours crafting into the ultimate version of Pokemon Emerald. Today, we'll be outlining our many changes, which include improved gym leaders, buffed Pokemon, enhanced storylines, Team Aqua and Magma fixes, dozens of quality of life improvements, and an even greater number of post-game rematches. And we'll finish on how you can play this ROM hack yourself. We're also giving away one final physical copy of the ROM, and to enter, just watch to the end and subscribe. So at its core, the goal of this project was to optimize and improve everything we could about Emerald while staying true to that core mechanic and feel that we all remember as kids. And a very important aspect of that, and the first thing we're going to look at today, is quality of life. Now we'll get into the finer details in part 2, but I wanted to mention straight out the gates at the very start that all 386 Pokemon can be caught in this ROM hack. And unlike in the base game, where the Pokédex serves mostly no purpose, we've implemented a pre-existing mod that revamps it into a useful resource. You can view a Pokemon's entire level up learn set, along with its TM, HM, and Egg moves. You'll also see what level they evolve at, their location, and their base stats. Now, in the stats page of your caught Pokemon, you'll notice the Pokemon's nature shows the stat being raised in red text and lowered in blue. You can also click A to view IVs, and A again to view EVs. We've also added a move description submenu during battle if you press start. Another huge feature is that you can unlearn a Pokemon's HM moves at any time. Gen 3 has a ton of HM requirements for game progression, and this feature helps to alleviate some of the learn set burden. For example, you can have a Gyarados that knows Surf, take it onto the water, and then replace Surf with Dive, dive down, dive back up, head into the seafloor cavern, teach it Strength, move boulders. And while this was a good start, we found that HMs were still a huge nuisance. The smashable rocks blocking the path above Mauville and cut trees around the overworld will no longer regenerate. We've also removed the breakable rocks that prevent progression in Seafloor Cavern and Victory Road. Some rocks will still exist to allow for faster progression and access to rare items, but you can now get through these dungeons without Rock Smash. Also, Victory Road will keep its darkness, but these flash areas have been pre-lit up by a cool trainer. Also, HM availability has just been massively increased. Like, if there is even a small reason that a Pokemon should learn an HM, it does. For example, Linoone can already surf. Why not Waterfall? Tentacruel has 2 jelly things on its head. Sure, it can learn Flash. And Gyarados already learns Bounce, so let's just teach it Fly to make it the ultimate HM companion. And who says you can't run indoors? Not us over here at the Legacy team. There's fast save, faster text, fast Pokemon Center heal, faster egg hatching, and fast surfing by holding B. We've even added a mod that increases the pace of battles. You can press A or B to advance text faster in battle, and there's a shortened delay between Faint Cry and Faint. Another thing I always disliked about Hoenn was the high level of required backtracking. We've added optional fast travel after the first Meteor Falls event back to Falarbor, back travel to Petalburg after beating Flannery, and travel to Mauville after beating your dad and getting Surf. Fishing will no longer have multiple rounds of dots, and there's also a fishing NPC in Pacific that will give you an old rod and or Pokeballs to prevent soft lock. Sorry, Picaspray. Also, after you beat the game, Rydell will upgrade your bike so that you can switch between the Mach and Acrobike at will. When healing Pokemon in the field, you can repeatedly use potions without going back to the bag screen. Key items that cannot be used in the field will no longer show a use or register option. And you know how the first option on berries was always check, which was just like, why, what? That's been changed. Berries grow faster and have way less text when planting and picking. Items will automatically go to the PC when your bag is full. Pressing start on the clock screen lets you change the time. The redundant Pokenav register text has been removed. And on that note, possibly the most important change in the whole game, the match call tutorial in Rustbro is now skippable. 7.9 out of 10. Minimum. We've added more shards so that you can easily get enough evolution stones. Ethers can be bought in Falarbor Town, and most other marts have been seriously improved. Most items are cheaper, while base repels only cost $10. Gotta love those government subsidized safety programs. Repels will also prompt a question to use another one after they run out. Now, as always, TMs are not reusable, but as the game progresses, you will slowly gain access to buyable TMs. Lilycove's Fire Blast Clerk now sells Solar Beam. Sidopolis has a few lower tier TMs. Evergrande City gets some of the more sought after ones, and the big dogs like Earthquake are in the Battle Frontier. And because Game Freak seems to just hate fire types, we've added a pick-upable flamethrower TM in Magma hideout. We've also added berry shops. The flower store below Rustboro sells Oran, Pecha, Cherry, Rost, Aspear, Lepa, Persum, and Chesto berries, and after you beat Norman, they'll start selling citrus and lumberries as well. The Berry Master will also always appear now, and he'll sell the following on-screen berries. There's also a Battle Frontier shop, which will sell these ones. We've also got some other changes to the berry system, which we'll cover in part 8. Oh, and the pinch berries that can confuse you, those now heal 1/4 of your HP instead of 1/8. We've also added 2 difficulty modes. Okay, now I need to just mention this because people were actually confused. Normal is just like basic classic Pokemon, like exactly the mechanics that you knew just with all these changes we've added in. The new hard mode is the version that most closely puts you on an even playing field with your opponent. So in normal, having the game set to switch mode is like easy. Normal set to set mode is medium difficulty. Hard forces you to play in set mode, but just as all major trainers have had their healing items removed, you can't use items in battle either. And lastly, in hard mode, you cannot go over the level of the upcoming gym leader's highest Pokemon. So if you're playing in hard mode and chose Torchic, you can't get Combuskin to fight Roxanne. And then lastly, we have hardcore mode, which contains all the rules of hard mode, but it also introduces a permadeath system. It's kind of like Nuzlocking, but if you've ever played GBA Fire Emblem, it's more close to that permadeath system. If a Pokemon faints, it cannot be revived, but you can reset your save to try the fight again. And if you lose all your Pokemon, you're automatically sent back to your last save. And what's cool about these modes is when you beat the game, your Hall of Fame card will now note the version you beat it. One last quality of life feature I've actually added are these real-life in-game clocks. Our sponsor Holzkern calls them watches, and you can actually program them to match the time to your in-game clock in Emerald Legacy, which, being programmed to the time in the real world, will give you both the real world and in-game time of your Legacy run. Now, I'm a Pokemon Sapphire lover at heart, but my roots come from Pokemon Silver. So I went with this beautiful blue timepiece, while my girlfriend is more of an Emerald fan, so she went with this sleek green and gold one. And we are so grateful for the support that this company has given to the channel. They're a family-founded business from Austria that sells both watches and jewelry. And what I really love about their products is the creativity behind them. They use natural items like gems, pearls, leaves, and even peacock feathers in their products. With both jewelry and watches, they make some amazing gifts, and their products typically arrive within 2 to 5 business days. Even better is all orders placed by December 19th are guaranteed to arrive by Christmas Day. So it would be awesome if you guys would go and check them out following the top description link or pinned comment. You can use my code SmithPlays at checkout to get 15% off your order. Part 2. Pokémon Availability. Making all 386 Pokémon catchable in Emerald was no small task for the team, and to do this while preserving the game's feel, it was crucial that the National Dex stay locked to the post-game. There were, however, 5 Pokémon that we ended up adding. In base Emerald, Fire-type was in a pathetic spot with just the 5 options of Blaziken, Torkoal, Camerupt, Slugma, and Ninetales. And we decided to add Ponyta to the Hoenn Dex as an early encounter on Route 110. With previous legacy buffs to Rapidash's speed, this makes it one of the only fast fire types in the game. Vulpix, the other one, was previously stuck in Mount Chimney, and we've added it to Route 116. The Respro trait has also been updated to gift the player a Numel. Houndoom was also added to the Pokedex, but I should note that this is not really an addition for the player. Houndoom is just such an awesome Pokemon that its presence will discourage players from using a natural Hoenn Dex fire type. Houndoom has really only been added to the game to help with Team Magma's diversity issue. It will still be available a little bit earlier now in Victory Road. Now, as for Ice type, this was in such a bad spot that it kind of made fire types look plentiful. Like, you've got an Ice type Elite 4 member, and the options for Ice type are Walrein, Glalie, and Regice. So yeah, it was kind of a problem. Now, even with late availability, Walrein is just a great Pokemon, so we prioritize giving Glalie a use case. Snorunt now evolves at level 36 and gets plus 10 to all stats, while Glalie sees plus 5. We then added an NPC trade in Mauville, who will trade you a Whismur for their Snorunt. We still needed more Ice types. So we then made Sneasel available on Route 113, which is the route that has all the ninjas, caves. We also added Piloswine and Swinub to Shoal Cave. This expands the number of available ice types up to 4 plus cast form, and even with this, we still felt like the number could have gone higher. The problem with adding in any other ice type is that you're introducing either another water type or just super popular Kanto Pokemon like Jinx, so we decided that it wasn't worth the trade-off. And the last Pokemon we decided to add was Murkrow. Hoenn actually did a great job of adding new dark types, but the opponents that build their team around dark really struggle against fighting type. Murkrow is available just before Lily Cove, and it should help a particular few trainers. And I'm really proud to say that this is all we had to add. We wanted to ensure that Emerald Legacy was still a celebration of Hoenn Pokemon. And if we added all of your favorite Pokemon, you just start to get away from the actual goal of what we were trying to do. These were 5 carefully chosen adds to help balance the game's poor distribution while limiting overexposure to non-Hoenn Dex Pokemon. Now, on top of the Shroomish Numel Rustboro trade and Whismur Snorunt Mauville trade, we changed the Fortree trade to be Kecleon for Loudred. This makes it a bit easier to run Exploud and helps give the whole Kecleon plot a bit more significance. The Pacificlog trade was also pretty awful, where you would give up a Bagon for a Horsey, and we changed it so they give you Bagon for your Relicanth. The Seedot and Plusle trade have been moved to the Battle Frontier and kept intact for those wanting to do the corruption glitches associated with them. We've also made it so you're gifted a prize Pokemon when completing a Master Rank contest. A Master in the Cute contest awards you with Delcatty, Smart gifts Gardevoir, Tough is Aggron, Slacking for Cool, and most notably, you'll get Milotic if you achieve Master Rank in the Beauty contest. Feebas has been left unchanged. We've also updated the locations of a ton of Pokemon. Seedot and Surskit are on Route 103, Spoink and Vulpix are on 116, Geodude and Igglybuff are now in Rust Turf Tunnel. In Granite Cave, Sableye moves to a Rock Smash encounter, while Nosepass is found walking through. Aberspot on Route 116 was taken by Spoink, so this is now its first appearance. Beldum also now appears in Steven's room at 1%. Now, I should mention, Beldum is known for having the lowest catch rate in Pokemon history, so don't go into this thinking it's like a sure thing and it's going to be easy. Metang is now one of the best Pokemon for a playthrough, and so it is rightfully so extremely hard to catch. Horsey can be caught by the Old Rod on Route 106, while Corphish can be fished on Route 109. On top of Ponyta's Route 110 appearance, Minun and Plusle both have decent encounter rates. The same goes for Volbeat and Illumise on Route 117. On Route 112, you can find Phanpy, Numel, and Meditite. 113 has Sneasel, and you will be happy to know that 114 has seen Zangoose added at 5%, while it appears stronger and more frequently on Route 115. And Meteor Falls has seen some huge upgrades, now featuring Bagon, Lunatone, Solrock, and Mawile. Nothing is new to the desert, but I did add a 2% Cacturne encounter for some additional flavor. We've also made the fossils revive at level 30 to reduce their investment startup cost. Staryu is added as a Good Rod encounter on 118. Corsola is an Old Rod encounter in Slateport. Duskull and Shuppet both frequently appear in Mount Pyre. And from here, the additions slow down, but I should note that wild Pokemon levels have been increased throughout, and this should especially make later game pickups much less time consuming. Ocean Roads have especially seen the best leveling, with those super low, like 5 to 10 Wingles just not appearing anymore. And as you progress towards the 130s, you'll notice the encounters improve with better, higher level Pokemon. Trade evolutions have once again been simplified. Kadabra and Haunter evolve at level 42, while Graveler and Machoke are 38. Trade items now function like evolution stones. Slowking, Steelix, Politoed, Kingdra, Scizor, Porygon 2, Huntail, and Gorbis now evolve when their respective evolution item is used on them. We've added a Sunstone in Meteor Falls for earlier Blossom. Post-game, the Mart in Mossdeep will also sell Sun and Moonstones. The little area north of the top pond in Petalburg now has a Waterstone. There's access to more shards and other evolution items available in the post-game. Hitmontop will once again evolve from the Brick Piece acquired after beating Brawly's first post-game rematch. Roxanne will give you the Old Amber, Watson gives you the upgrade, Tate and Liza gives a King's Rock, and Wand gives you a Dragon Scale. The metal coat is found in the Frontier Held item shop. Captain Stern will also give the player the second Deep Sea item. We've also restored Altering Cave's original functionality. It will have all the cut Pokemon from the original encounter groups each time you enter after completing the Jirachi event. The other routes will also update their encounter list, usually adding 1 to 2 new National Dex Pokemon. And I really need to note, there is a heavily detailed document in the description outlining this and literally every single change made to Emerald Legacy. Our team took like dozens of hours even assembling this document. So if you see someone in the comments asking a lazy question, I just ask, like, as a community, if we can be cool, come together, and rather than just answer that question, be like, yo, you can find that in the documentation. Teaching people to fish. That's what it's all about. Anyway, the ads do continue. We've added Eevee as the Trick House completion prize. Porygon becomes a Mauville Game Corner prize. The Helix Fossil is added to Route 124, and the Dome goes to 127. Snorlax is the Trainer Hill Expert completion reward, and the Johto starters are reobtainable each E4 run until you have all 3. There's also post-game quests for the Kanto and other 2 Hoenn starters. You obtain Hoenn starters by breeding and trading first Evo versions of your starter, and certainly not the only time Craig went hard, but Craig went very hard for the Kanto starters. There's a Squirtle quest where you collect heart scales, a Charmander quest where you collect red, yellow, and blue flutes, and a Bulbasaur quest where you find hidden Kecleons. Oh, also, you know, like the legendaries? Yeah, all of them are available in the game, and I actually can't tell you how to get them, because on the release of this video, we're actually running it as an Easter egg hunt. To avoid spoilers, we won't mention where to find the legendaries in this video, but I'm sure some YouTuber is going to make a great video on how to find them all. What I will leave you with, though, is that all those cool tickets that take you to the cool islands to catch the cool Pokemon, those are all in the game, and it's pretty sick. Part 3, Pokémon Balancing. Hoenn made some very inconsistent design choices, and this resulted in a game where you have very well thought out Pokemon like Gardevoir and Breloom, while Pokemon like Volbeat, Aggron, and Shiftry exist under the same development team. We first went through moves and balanced them against one another. If a move like Thunderbolt gets 15 PP, we made sure moves of similar power like Ice Beam and Psychic got raised to that as well. Then there were moves that were even more unreasonably worse off, like Giga Drain. Even with a PP max, Giga Drain was just in a terrible spot, so we buffed its PP to 15 and gave it 15 power. We lowered recover moves down to 5 PP, outclassed 100 power moves like Iron Tail were buffed to usually 90 accuracy or more, Signal Beam became 85 power, High Jump Kick became Fighting's 120 base power move, while Sky Attack did the same for flying. Dynamic Punch and Zap Cannon gets 70 accuracy, Cut becomes a bug type move, Fly gets 100 accuracy, Dive gets 80 power, Waterfall gets higher flinch, Flash stays losing. We can't cover every single move change, but we've got documentation, you can look at it in the Pokédex, and we also made a full video covering all of this. Now, once moves were sorted out, it was time to look at the Pokemon themselves and look at learn sets, stats, evolution level, and sometimes even abilities. Now, to better understand these changes, let's take a look at what we did to the 3 most important Pokemon in the game, the starters. The first change we made for Torchic was lowering its Peck to level 6. Previously, it didn't learn this move until 16 when it got access to Stab Double Kick, a move that neutrally does more damage than a super effective Peck. So this is just like a nice little style change that also helps it deal with bug types in the early game. Now, on the fighting side of Combusken, Double Kick absolutely managed to hold this Pokemon over through basically the entire game, but in base Emerald, the line wouldn't get another fire move after Ember until level 36. And considering that this line is supposed to be a mixed attacker, this drastically held Combusken back. We decided Fire Punch is the most stylistically appropriate mid-power fire move. Listen, I know, kicking, whatever, it's still a fighting type. Combusken now learns Fire Punch at 23. And seeing as Gen 3 was the first introduction of signature moves to the series, we wanted to make these moves stand out. Blaziken learns Blaze Kick at 36, and it now has 100% accuracy with both a 20% chance to burn and flinch. Sky Uppercut also just felt too late, so we buffed its accuracy by 5 and moved it to level 42. Now, the starter levels are something we wouldn't dare change, and they were fine as they were, but this is the first time we've actually changed a starter's stats. See, Blaziken had 5 base stat points less than Swampert, and it's already not as good as Swampert, so we gave it 5 in speed. For Gen 3 standards, Blaziken will still not be fast, but this helps push it to where you want it to be. And we had a similar philosophy when it came to fixing Sceptile. With Absorb up to level 29, Trico's high speed and special attack are completely wasted. Despite my love for it, I've made it very clear that I think Trico is the biggest unperformer of Gen 3, which is really sad when you consider how much water exists in Emerald. And to preserve that feel, we've left Trico with Absorb Absorb, but buffed the move's power to 30. It's on evolution into Grovyle, where the family moves towards the leaf slashing style of grass types, learning Razor Leaf. Not only does this provide it with a good mid-game move, but it stylistically serves as just a weaker version of its signature move, which now comes at 36. Leaf Blade has been buffed to now have a 50% chance to cause the focus energy effect, and this synergizes with its existing high crit ratio, which makes the move a coin flip to crit after the buff. It also gets 5+ special attack because I don't know, man. Game Freak really just said, like, we hate anything that is not Mudkip. But with these changes, Sceptile now has the great stats and moves to lead a team like a starter should. Now, as for Mudkip, well, we've actually added a string of code into the game that gives every single enemy trainer a priority grass move if you select Mudkip as a starter. No. Mudkip is great, and we have added grass coverage on a lot of enemy trainers that need the help dealing with Mudkip, but there were no strict nerfs. The line actually found itself needing an early to mid-game water move, so we gave it Bubble Beam at level 21. And then to coincide with Mud Shot, which always lowers speed, we've buffed its Muddy Water so that it now comes on evolution at 36 and has a 50% chance to lower the opponent's speed. Now, we don't have time to cover every single Pokemon change, so we're gonna look at a few more notable changes to give you a better idea of how we fix Pokemon in general. And because this is my video and I love Flygon, we're next going to talk about Flygon. With 520 base stats and access to great stab moves, Flygon had the potential to be great. Super high cost of investment, super low performance. There's just no reason to run it when you could just wait 5 levels and get yourself a Salamence. There are very few cases where we lowered an evolution level, but Trapinch now evolves at 32 and Vibrava at 42. This level reduction helps Flygon by giving it more time fully evolved, so it can provide more benefit at its max power. Furthermore, Vibrava previously had 350 base stat, which, just fun little fact that loves to get thrown around, is just slightly more than a stage 1 starter's base stats. To remedy this egregious decision, we gave Vibrava a flat 10 in everything. Flygon also got 10 in special attack to make better use of its great TM learn set. Combine this with its natural learn set, now including Dragon Claw, Earthquake, and a flavorful Signal Beam, and Flygon is finally living up to my ridiculously high childhood expectations. I think Game Freak's goal with Flygon was to make it a diet pseudo-legendary, but they got too scared and they just made it way worse than it needed to be. It now fills that role, where its final form is not as good as Salamence, but the benefit of just like less investment cost makes it absolutely worthwhile to run. Another good example of a diet pseudo-legendary sucking is Aggron. Aeron has had its evolution level reduced to 28, and then the line, which is a rock type, actually learns rock moves now. Cool. There's actually one more change that we've given to all rock types, and this is going to notably help Aggron as well. Sandstorm was introduced in Generation 2, and while it did get a few buffs through Pokemon abilities, we felt like it was still majorly lacking behind Sun and Rain. So like Generations 4 and onwards, when Sandstorm is activated, it now gives a 50% boost to rock type's special defense. Also, on that note, I should just mention it right here. In Generation 3, Hail does nothing but chip non-Ice-type Pokemon. So we took inspiration from Generation 9 and basically implemented the snow mechanic as Hail. Hail now gives Blizzard 100% accuracy, while also giving Ice types a 50% defense boost. Now, on that note, there were still even some Sun Pokemon that were needing help. Take the Shiftry line, which previously learned no grass moves. We gave it grass moves. Also, like in our other hacks, Dark has now become a physical type, while Ghost has gone to special. And actually now, Shiftry kind of feels like Walmart Sceptile, but with Dark stat. Rapidash got kicking moves, so it is Walmart Blaziken. And Wishcast, which was already in a pretty decent spot, just got some better learn set moves and is clearly Walmart Swampert. Then there's the Ludicolo line, which got no grass moves, no water moves outside of Bullet Seed and eventually Surf. People love Ludicolo because Ludicolo is good, but these people often forget that Lombre is what you're running up until Tate and Liza. With the Water Stone we added in Petalburg, Ludicolo will now evolve around the same time as Shiftry, and it should be much, much better. Oh, there's also Cacturn, which is like Walmart Shiftry. Shiftry just completely outclassed this thing. So we actually did an entire stat rework for Cacturn to make it like its own Pokemon. Sableye and Mawile got some pretty noteworthy stat changes along with better learn sets. Our goal wasn't to make every single Pokemon top tier, but we tried to give them as much help as we could without letting them lose their identity. And as you can see from this tier list, this gives you an idea of like where the game is at now. Part 4. Gym leaders. At the time of their creation, Emerald's gym leaders were, without a doubt, the greatest sets of teams we had ever seen in Pokemon. But that didn't mean they couldn't be improved. Roxanne was an extremely boring gym leader, where her first 2 Geodudes were all but a free one-shot. And the resulting fight of your whole team versus Nosepass made for a pretty uninteresting A-button clickfest. And so we gave Roxanne the 2 fossil Pokemon, Anorith and Lileep. What I love about this addition is their typing is Rock Bug and Rock Grass. These additions instantly increase the complexity of the fight, forcing the player to take a second to consider super effective type matchups. Again, we are trying to stay true to a mainline Pokemon game, true to Emerald. So the goal for this fight was not to add all these crazy stab moves, but more so just add Pokemon that force you to think a little bit harder. Now, Gym 2 sees Brawly move his Makuhita to the front of his party, while Breloom becomes his ace. Truthfully, I wanted to see Hariyama as his Gym 2 ace, but it's just too strong. And actually, for that matter, Breloom got no features, so it was a very easy decision. Now, in our Romhack's Yellow and Crystal Legacy, we introduced dynamic gym level scale. And in Emerald Legacy, Brawly's team is going to scale based on the number of badges you have. Most people fight him second, but if you choose to skip him and come back for your 3rd or 4th gym badge, he'll actually get a Hariyama and eventually add a 4th Pokemon. Now, due to level caps, this will be very hard for you if you're playing in hard mode, and that's because you'll have to fight Watson with your level 19 capped, and he's now level 25. And on that note, Watson has seen his team upgraded to now have a Chinchou and Plusle replace Electric and Voltorb. Chinchou has water moves and Icy Wind to cover grass types, while Plusle has been buffed to have a more sweeper build, and it's also been given its new egg move, Magical Leaf. Watson's Achilles heel has always been ground types, so we're hoping that these 2 adds make his difficulty a little more consistent. Now, Flannery's Slugma evolves into Magcargo, corresponding to its new evolution level, and it now heavily resists water moves. Magcargo is so bad that we basically redesigned Magma armor exclusively for it. It's now the sole inheritor of the ability, and with the multipliers we've added on the ability, Magcargo now resists damage from water moves. The idea for this is that Magcargo sucks so bad it needs it, but in reality, it's that Magcargo burns so hot, any water that touches it just instantly vaporizes. Camerupt is a good Pokemon and it doesn't need this, so it's now going to get Flame Body, which is nice because it still gives it the egg hatching ability as well. And lastly, Flannery gets a Vulpix lead to help her set up the sun. Now, Norman stays pretty similar, but he swaps the Spinda for Girafarig to just help him have a bit more consistency. We've also made Protect and Detect level 1 relearn moves on a few Pokemon to make this method of beating him require just a little bit more effort. Winona's big issue was that 4 members of her team sucked, and she entirely leaned on Altaria to carry the team. We've swapped out Swablu to bring Swellow back, and then gave the rest of her team solid moves. Oh, and as for Tropius, on top of like an insane stat boost, we've also given it the ability Thick Fat. And as for Tate and Liza, they were already amazing, so we're just cranking up their difficulty to match the improvements we've made to the other gym leaders. They see some learn set changes along with the addition of Chimecho and Metachan. As a kid, I always called it Chimecho, and I feel like that sounds more mystical. Makes way less sense than Chime because it's a wind chime, but it's on the team now. Chimecho provides healing as a levitating support Pokemon, while Metacham provides access to beat the shit out of dark types. Now, lastly, Wallace is returning as the Pseudopolis gym leader. And for building this team, we've gone with a mix of both Juan and Wallace champion. Wallace's ace is now a Dive Toxic Leftovers Milotic, which we felt really holds a similar energy of just pure evilness to Juan's Double Team Kingdra. We also gave his Ludicolo Double Team on the rare chance that you enjoy suffering. Wallace also gets the Tentacruel and Whiscash from his champion team, and we also went for a little style choice by adding in Masquerain. Now, it obviously would have been completely out of line for the goals of this ROM hack to change a Pokemon's type, but seeing as Masquerain's prior evolution Surskit was a water type, and Masquerain is just like really beautiful, this felt like such a perfect Pokemon to add to Wallace's team. Previously, it was really underrepresented. It's got ground immunity, it has Intimidate, and it also provides coverage against grass types and Thunderbolt Gardevoir, which everyone knows is the best electric type in Gen 3. I'll also mention here that all gym leaders other than Gym 8 have been given rematches. Now in base Emerald, once you became champion, you had 4 increasingly difficult double battles against every gym leader. And we've changed it so that one of these is now available before post-game. Because this is additional XP and additional content, we didn't want to put this in your face, so there's not going to be an indication of it happening outside of the Pokénav, just given that little dot to say like, yo, they want to battle again. Now, Roxanne will be available for rematch after you beat Watson. She's going to add Corsola and cap at level 26. Brawly will be available after beating Flannery and has the same team as his Badge 4 fight. Watson can be rechallenged after the new Marvel event, and Flannery is then available after completing the Magma Hideout event. You'll notice that all these rematches become available at times where travel to their gym is fairly proximal and convenient. Now, Winona and Tate and Liza can be challenged after defeating Wally in Victory Road, and since Juan isn't the gym leader here yet, hint, hint, there just won't be a Gym 8 rematch before the Elite Four, because why would you? Yeah. Now, most notably of all, we're making Norman's rematch like the big one. Norman will be the one gym leader that actually gives you a call. He's such a big part of the game. He has such a great moment for Gym 5, and we wanted to just give him a bit more. So after you collect all 8 badges, you'll be able to fight him in a doubles format where he has 6 Pokemon. They're all double battles, by the way. Now, there's 2 reasons we added these fights in. The first is just that like they provide a nice little bit of extra XP in case you need it. The second was that people were asking for more double battles, and we felt like this was a really good way to sort of sneak that in without making Emerald feel way different. Now, every gym leader also has 3 post-game rematches, which are going to be like really competitive, and we'll look at those in the post-game section. Part 5, Team Aqua and Magma. Team Hot Dog Water and Hot Garbage were without a doubt the most undercooked section of all of Pokemon Emerald. The Emerald Legacy glow-up starts in Petalburg Woods, where we see just a small, simple change of adding Carvana to this guy's team to show you, hey, this group, they're the guys that use water Pokemon. It's not until Mount Chimney where the big changes start. Players will notice Grunts having a much more diverse set of Pokemon instead of the usual Zubat, Poochyena, Numel lineup. We'll see Tabitha with Cacnea, Lairon, and his signature Zangoose, and Maxie will be running Mightyena, Golbat, Nuzleaf, and Camerupt. Ruby enjoyers and simps alike will then rejoice with the return of Courtney in Magma Hideout. Both here and in the Space Center, her team will feature Murkrow, Roselia, Claydol, and Ninetales. Tabitha's Hideout team has Crobat, Lairon, Cacturne, and Zangoose. Maxie will have Shiftry, Aggron, Crobat, Camerupt, and in what might be my favorite add to any trainer in Legacy, his Mightyena will swap for a Houndoom. Now, finally in the Space Center, Maxie and Tabitha's double battle will see the 2 teams coming together in a way that mostly reflects Maxie's previous party. They'll lead Houndoom Crobat, followed by Shiftry Aggron, and then Camerupt Zangoose. Maxie is still going to wake up Groudon after the Magma Hideout, but there will be some changes to his motives. He'll explain that he wants Groudon to make more farmland to help society. And the center of this conflict becomes the fact that he knows if both Groudon and Kyogre are awakened, it could destroy the continent. We've now changed his motives so that it more accurately reflects the real-life events of the Isahaya Bay project that this story was based on. After Groudon is awakened, Maxie's Space Center scene will change drastically. Maxie will no longer be wanting to nuke the continent with his spaceship fuel. Instead, we'll realize Maxie is using the satellites of the Space Center to track Archie and stop Kyogre from awakening. So basically now, Groudon gets awakened and is not in Maxie's control, but it's not going crazy. Archie doesn't know that Groudon has been awakened. So everything after Groudon getting awakened is this tension between Maxie wanting to stop Archie to not like destroy the continent and Archie just continuing with his plan in ignorance. And Team Aqua is going to see similar changes to posture on the other side of this conflict. Shelly will still lead the Weather Institute takeover, but now her team will feature Mightyena, Seviper, and Gorbis. Matt's Aqua Hideout team will see Electrode, Crawdon, Machamp, and Huntail. But the biggest way we've changed Team Aqua is that we've made the Mount Pyre event another big conflict. If you want to follow the very loose idea of like the 3-act structure, this story is like missing the 2nd act. You have Mount Chimney, which is like the climax of the first setup act, and then of course like the 3rd act is like the climax of the whole story. You've got that, that's good. But now instead of being bland and nothing, Mount Pyre is going to act as the climax of that 2nd act. Just like on Mount Chimney, we're gonna see the teams actually fighting against each other. And the event's high point is actually gonna show Maxie and Archie explaining their opposing ideals to each other. Maxie will ultimately get away, and a frustrated Archie will challenge you to a battle. But as he challenges you, another figure approaches you from behind. Enter the new Archie Matt double battle. So in base Emerald, Maxie and Tabitha got 2 single battles and a double battle, while Archie and Matt got 1 each. So we also took the opportunity to expand Mount Pyre on the gameplay side and add in a Matt-Archie double battle. Here, their team will feature Wailord Electrode, Crobat Crawdont, and Sharpedo Huntail. Now, the Aqua Hideout event will be unchanged, but given the added tension from a new framing, I think this section really helps to build the pressure that is cooking towards a finale. In the Seafloor Cavern, we'll see Shelly now rocking a cast form that we can presume she stole from the Weather Institute, and since he's got the final battle of the story, Archie's team is tuned, resulting in being one of the most loved fights from playtesters. He runs Mightyena, Wailord, Machamp, Crobat, and Sharpedo. Now after this, the Armageddon event will be pretty similar. We'll see some alterations to the Cave of Origin. We'll also now say that he's been studying the place, and rather than asking a small child where the Sky Pillar is, he explains how he himself knows from studying the cave drawings. The rest of the event goes off the same, with Kyogre and Groudon fighting, and may I add, Groudon will continue to be an absolute dog, just taking on a water type on the tiniest plot of land. What a legend. Anyway, they then get broken up by Big Daddy Rayman, and balance is restored. Following these events, we've changed the leader's dialogue to make note of the fact that they did almost end the world, and that they've learned from their mistakes. And lastly, in the postgame, you'll be able to fight each leader next to their respective legendaries dungeons. This will provide an even more conclusive ending to their arcs, showing some growth and starting to realize the idea of balance. Part 6. Rivals. Emerald's rivals suffer from the writer's lack of commitment to a particular story. The story promised by the game shows the main rival, May or Brendan, wanting to become a competitive trainer and coming to term with their true goal misaligning with this. The drive to become a good trainer is actually coming from expectations and their dad pushing them. It's got a real, it's not my dream, dad, it's yours kind of vibe. Now, in short, this is a very elegant idea for a character arc in a Pokemon game. Unfortunately, it isn't written clear enough to provide the payoff that it promised. After the Lily Cove battle, the rival mentions they're going to head home for a while, and there isn't any clear indication that this is part of them changing as a person. They just never show up again, and most players are left to assume that the writers kind of forgot about them. Now, this sort of fadeaway was intended so that you could then have Wally swoop in and be the big climactic moment in Victory Road. The problem on this side is that Wally then doesn't work because the game didn't do a good enough job of establishing him as a primary character. He's the catching tutorial kid in Petalburg, you fight his lone Ralts in Mauville, and then he's gone for the next 4 to 8 hours of gameplay. His then just 3rd appearance in Victory Road then doesn't hold any weight because he hasn't been established as an important character. The guy doesn't even have his own music. To establish a character arc for the main rival, we've updated their team to reflect a growing interest in Pokédex completion. They'll start like any other rival, but won't end up building a super competitive team. It will slowly become apparent that they're more interested in finding rare species. After their starter, they'll add Spoink in their 2nd appearance. On Route 110, they'll add a 2nd type of the Elemental Trio, Torkoal, Wailmer, and Shroomish. After the Weather Institute, they'll show a deeper turn towards rare Pokemon, having caught a Kecleon before the player is introduced to the Devonscope. And finally, their Lily Cove team will add one of Donphan, Pinsir, and Heracross. After this battle, their dialogue will more actively show their realization that their passion doesn't lie in Pokemon battling. And finally, as the player walks out of Pseudopolis with their 8 badge, your rival will approach you one more time. In this conclusive moment, they come to you to say that they finally now acknowledged that they don't have this drive to be a trainer. Instead, they're going to become a Pokemon professor like their dad. This completes their arc, providing a nice parallel to the player's journey, while better establishing the actual difficulty it takes to become a top-tier trainer. This is also all working to help better set up Wally. Now, the first thing we did to help Wally was give him a 2nd fight before you challenge your dad. This location works at a time where additional XP is appreciated, but it was also chosen to show the completion of Wally's training arc. This establishes him as a somewhat competent trainer, and more importantly, someone who has made an improvement at a very fast rate. So in giving Wally some room to grow in the first half of his journey, it adds payoff and oomph to his monstrous glow up in Victory Road. Now, his final battle teammates remain with Delcatty, Altaria, Magneton, Roselia, and Gardevoir, all having been buffed with moves and items. And since this is the final rival battle, we grace him with an Azumarill. With now his own theme music to match, the final Wally battle is an absolute hooker. Now, in the post-game, Brendan or May have been given a huge role, as they will be the ones orchestrating the player getting the other starters. Wally is simply going to keep training and provide the player with 4 rematch double battles. These teams have been designed to showcase Wally growing as a trainer, slowly starting to dabble with advanced strategies and national dex Pokemon. His first and second rematch will keep Gardevoir, Azumarill, Altaria, and Delcatty, and add in Minun and Future Fairy type Mawile. These two teams are meant to showcase a more refined but still Hoenn-oriented Wally. Wally rematch 3 is where things get a little more creative. In this fight, Wally's going to lead with Altaria and Meganium. Now, Meganium isn't featured on any other trainer's team, but it just fits Wally's vibe so well that we couldn't not add it here. We're also going to add a White Herb Rapidash over Minun along with a Silk Scarf Granbull. Now, as for Wally's 4th and final rematch, he's going to lead with a Toxic Follow Me Clefable and a Choice Band Guts Facade Swellow. This will be followed by Azumarill, Altaria, and Gardevoir, with Meganium in the back with Grass Whistle, Swords Dance, Earthquake, and Body Slam. These are some really fun fights, and we hope you have fun with them. Part 7. Elite Four. Mightyena has always been Hoenn's introductory Pokemon to the League Challenge, so we felt a small duty to make it work on Sydney's team. Intimidate already gives it a great reason to lead, so it just needed moves to let it do something. We decided on giving it Super Fang, so now after it tanks a kick, it can clap back and instantly take out half a Pokemon's health. Previously, a single fighting type like Blaziken could easily stomp Sydney. And so now, second out, the legacy buffed Murkrow should help stop this with its hard-hitting single-turn Sky Attack. Now, unfortunately, 2 Grass Dark types was quite redundant, and we ended up deciding that Cacturne did very little for Sydney. Shiftry and Crawdaunt remain on the team, just seeing some learn set changes. And with Dark-type move to physical damage, no Pokemon benefits more than Absol. With its now 20+ speed of 95 and 130 attack, Absol is an absolute beast that can now shine as the monster it was intended to be. Kicking off the lacking type diversity parade is Ghost user Phoebe, who previously only had access to Sableye, Dusclops, and Banette. We considered adding Shedinja, but came to the same conclusion that Game Freak probably did as well. Shedinja's gimmick is too easily exploited when under control of the AI. Well, it was either that or them understanding some kids wouldn't be smart enough to know how to damage it. Now, building off that idea of weaknesses being easily exploitable, Sableye actually makes for the perfect lead. Much like how Kingdra plays, Sableye's lack of weakness stops the player from getting a free Oko by leading the fight with a super effective Pokemon. Banette is then out second with Revenge, Thunderbolt, and Destiny Bond. I should also note here that to coincide with the special swap, Banette has had its special raised, while its attack stays high to allow it to remain a mixed attacker. Ninetales is Phoebe's first new add, and we've given it a White Herb with Overheat, Will-O-Wisp, Shadow Ball, and Confuse Ray. Her second new Pokemon is actually Medicham. Now, I think a lot of people are probably watching and thinking, why not just add Gengar and Misdrevious to the Hoenn Dex and call it a day? Well, for Gengar, this line is grossly overused in the first 2 generations. There's a case to be made for Misdrevious, but we decided not to add this either because it's simply another mono ghost type that would only force Dusclops and Banette to share the spotlight further. In adding Ninetales and Medicham, Phoebe transforms from a mono type ghost user to one like many Elite Fours before her. Now, if you thought Phoebe's original team struggled, well, you probably also thought Glacia was bad, because yeah, that's a similar train of thought. Glacia is still an ice specialist, but perhaps the better way to think of her now is being a hail specialist. She still leads with her Glalie, but a flat +5 to her stats aren't the only thing helping this team, because hail now gives 100% accurate Blizzard and a 50% defense boost to ice types, which is enough to finally give Glacia the power spike she needed to feel like an Elite Four member. Now, her second Pokemon out is Scopeland Sneasel with Swords Dance and Slash. Piloswine also joins the mix with a Resto Chesto combo. Now, Castform is Glacia's third new add, and this is why I like to think of her as a hail specialist. Previously, she had 2 Pokemon, and we're always in favor of simple ideas. So adding Castform, which will turn to its ice form in Hail, is just a really elegant solution to Hoenn's diversity problem. Now, of course, Walrein is going to remain her ace. We gave it leftovers, but the most exciting part of its build is actually something we kept on it: Sheer Cold. For the most part, Oko moves suck. suck. But there's something about Sheer Cold Wall Rain that just works for Glacia. It's the first and maybe only time an OHKO move actually feels threatening. Maybe that's because of Walreign's bulk, I don't know, but it's just so tied to Walreign's identity that we had to keep it. So after base Emerald's slew of incredible gym leader fights, the game's first 3 Elite Four fights always felt like a step back before getting to the good stuff. Drake is the good stuff. And that means that Drake doesn't need as many changes as our first 3 members. Now, of his first 4 Pokemon, Flygon is capable of the most destruction and disruption, so we actually decided to make it his lead. Now, this goes against what I was talking about with weaknesses being exploitable, and there are some cases where you can one-shot it with a fast ice type, but we discovered that this is actually a pretty rare case. And without Ice Stab, there's actually only a few water types that can both outspeed and have the special attack to one-shot. So leading Flygon is a hyper-aggressive strategy that works out for Drake more often than not, and as a dragon user, an aggressive strategy is just something that feels appropriate. You also notice his other 3 staying Pokemon all get their learn sets cranked up. Altaria gets Dragon Dance, Kingdra gets Sleep Talk Rest, and Salamence stays winning due to the simple fact that it is a Salamence. Now, as for Shelgon, to be completely honest, it actually wasn't that awful. Since it didn't have the big ice weakness like his other 3, it wouldn't often get one-tapped, but it also didn't win a lot. Like, it's got this very predictable turn 1 protect that is just giving the player a free setup, and so we just decided to give him a Huntail instead. Previous generations probably would have given him a Gyarados. I would rather shoot myself in the face. And Huntail's great because it holds that serpentine vibe, and if you look very closely, you will note it is in fact not a Gyarados. Now, to quell the anticipation I'm sure you've all been feeling, ladies and gentlemen, I am now so excited to announce and confirm that Steven will in fact be the champion of Hoenn in Pokémon Emerald Legacy. We came to this decision after concluding that Wallace as champion is just too clunky to ever work properly. When your game has over 10 dedicated water routes followed by a Team Aqua leader Archie, into Water leader Juan, into Water Ice E4 Glacia, into Water champion Wallace, the game is fairly criticized as being too repetitive. But on a less considered level, this unintentionally destroys the balance of varying Pokemon types. Like, when you have such an abundance of water users, how can a fire type compete and actually be viable compared to a Thunderbolt user? And so while it is mainly a storyline decision, Steven's return as champion and Glacia's transformation both also help gain balance. Now, there's gonna be some fun things happening in part 8, but at the time you first challenge the league, Steven will be the residing champion. And his roster is actually going to stay the exact same from Ruby Sapphire. Steven has a really solid team, and it's actually only his learn set choices that hold him back. His Skarmory leads and has been updated with Toxic to stall and Whirlwind to prevent cheesy setup strats. Claydol now has Light Screen, Psychic, Earthquake, and Explosion with a Quick Claw. Aggron gets Thunder Wave and a Salac Berry, which sharply raises speed when low on health. His Armaldo is optimized with Choice Band, Twin Needle, Iron Tail, Rock Blast, and Facade. As always, Metagross fills out his ace position, now rocking Agility and a Lumberry. And actually, perhaps most impressive of all, Cradily becomes an absolute monster, running Curse, Leech Seed, Recover, Leftovers, and Ancient Power. I actually have a stream VOD up on the channel, and this thing manages to reverse sweep my +6 Cosmic Power Baton Pass Flygon. +6 defense, special defense, and I couldn't kill this thing. Steven's really good now. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that is your new and improved mainline story of Pokemon Emerald. The good news for you is that if you thought this was it, like, we are just getting started. Emerald Legacy's postgame is by far the most expansive, optimized, and updated section of the entire game. We've got Trainer Hill, the Battle Frontier, Gym Leader rematches, the opportunity to catch all 386 Pokemon, including all legendary events, and finally, rematches for the Elite Four champion and post-game secret boss. Part 8, postgame. As defined by Bulbapedia, screw you teachers of my past, Trainer Hill is a tower designed for trainers to race and battle through quickly. It's that tower thing that was added above Emerald. What I'm getting at is Trainer Hill was a bit of an afterthought in Emerald. It's just a spot that had really horrible rewards, and so there was no incentive or reason to ever do this, especially when the Battle Frontier existed. So what we did is we actually ended up using this area to give our amazing playtesters a place in the game. And if you beat Expert Trainer Hill, you can also challenge Craig, Weebra, and myself. Beating the Expert course in any amount of time will also reward you with a Snorlax. And the entire prize pool has also been changed, giving the player repeatable access to some awesome things, including evolution stones. You can see everything on screen, but the final rewards are normal rare candy, variety PP Max, unique Sacred Ash, and Expert Master Ball. So the Battle Frontier is a great example of how this project as a whole has evolved. When I first started working on Pokemon Crystal Legacy, this channel didn't even exist, and I was doing everything by myself on a simple notepad editor. Now sitting here in Emerald Legacy, our team has grown so much to the point that I haven't had a single interaction or input on anything to do with the Battle Frontier. This section of the game was led by Arrow, who was also the lead of Crystal's Battle Tower. So to begin, rentals in the Battle Factory have been vastly improved, adding more diversity to the pool of Pokemon that you can use and fight against. There's a reduction in RNG sets, there's unique, powerful, never-before-seen sets, and more late-game diversity in the non-legendary pool. We removed over half the number of Bright Powder, Double Team, and Oko sets, instead focusing on unique sets showing off the strengths of different Pokemon. That isn't to say there aren't memes or annoying sets, but you're not going to see it every time anymore. Early stages of the factory are also no longer just click random move for the first 4 rounds. Instead, they'll have very basic AI in the beginning, and as the rounds progress, it will get harder to where it was in the base game. In terms of other areas, we've left them alone from major overhauls. But overall, you can expect more difficulty, but it's a more enjoyable experience because the difficulty has been made more fair. We've also added double Battle Frontier symbols. This gives more freedom to the player, as in the base game, you could only trigger the Frontier Brains in singles formats. Frontier Brains also have improved teams. We kept the original spice of most of the teams and instead just improved on them to make them the hardest in the region. Notably, Greta did have a complete overhaul because her team was just not well designed for her own format. We've also made Jirachi, Celebi, Mew, Deoxys Speed, and Defense legal in the Frontier to allow players more options from their own playthrough to use and enjoy. In Emerald Legacy, contests themselves don't change, but everything adjacent to them do. Our team member Izona has spearheaded an overhaul to the berry system. So originally, it was difficult to get good Pokeblocks, which forced you to use subpar blocks unless you blended with friends or spent days growing the best berries. Distribution of several berry types was imbalanced, giving you only a few of some while oversaturating others. Hello, Nanab. Even then, the best berries were locked behind a confusing and uneven password system that's never conveyed in-game. The Blend Master only appeared as a special daily TV event, and when you used the best berries with him, he would use a worse option. And then, with all this nuisance, you can still end up with a Pokemon that can only compete in 2 to 3 contest types due to its sheen being capped. And so basically, all of this was fixed. As previously mentioned in Quality of Life, we added shops to make acquiring berries easy. We also adjusted most berries' smoothness values and growth times to be easier to use. Most take 1.5 days or fewer to grow, and on top of smoothness being lowered, you can feed more blocks to your Pokemon. The sheen cap has been removed and replaced with a diminishing return system. So to max out all 5 stats, it will get slower and slower, but the stat will always go up by at least 1. Now, next, we made the Blend Master available all the time in post-game and buffed his berries. So when you bring the same berry he uses, he will now upgrade the ones he brings instead of downgrading them. Berry tree locations and gift quantities were also adjusted. The Berry Master's garden now has all 6 EV berries, and one of each of these trees is also present somewhere else in the world. We made the Berry Master's wife give away berries without needing a password, and she'll wait until you've beaten the E4 before giving the best ones. Kiri in Sidopolis can now give all 5 berries from Figgy, Wiki, Mango, Aguave, and La Papa, not just Figgy or La Papa. And so by making all these changes, contests can be left alone for you to enjoy more easy. Gym Leader rematches. Upon becoming champion, players will find 3 unique double battles for each gym leader, with the first capped at level 55. After you get silver in the Battle Frontier, the next set of fights will unlock, capping at level 60. And after all of these rematches are beaten, the final teams become available, capping at 65. So because this is her 3rd fight in the game, Roxanne 3 is referring to her first post-game rematch. In this fight, she leads Hardstone Relicanth and King's Rock Armaldo, followed by Rhydon, Cradilly, and Leftovers Nosepass. There's just 5 Pokemon here because 1, her first rematch only had 4, and 2, we didn't want it to step on the toes of the champion fight. Now, Roxanne 4 kicks it up a notch and leads with Quick Claw Tyranitar and Scope Lens Aerodactyl. Reminder that all of these fights are double, so Tyranitar's Gen 3 never-ending Sandstorm gives Aerodactyl a very scary 50% special defense boost. Roxanne 5 then switches it up again with Choice Band Tyranitar and Leftovers Flygon, followed by Aerodactyl, Cradilly, Armaldo, and Nosepass. Brawly's first post-game rematch sees Hitmonchan and Breloom to lead. This is followed by a Chuck-reminiscent Poliwrath and Primate with Hariyama as his ace. Brawly 4 leads Salicberry, Bellydrum, Poliwrath, and Overheat Magmar. And saving the best for last to Libra's delight, Brawly 5 leads Breloom and Hitmontop, and Blaziken and Heracross also join here. Now, Watson 3 sees Surf, Raichu, Lantern, Jolteon, Electabuzz, and Manectric. Watson 4 switches it up to see Plusle and Minun lead, and then Lantern, Magneton, Porygon 2, plus his ace. His final roster swaps Magneton for Electabuzz, and Raichu, Lantern now lead with Rain Dance strats. Flannery is then where we start to see every post-game team start with 6 Pokemon. Her first team features Magcargo, Bellossom, Camerupt, Charizard, Magmar, and Torkoal. The second fight will see Charizard and Camerupt lead, and in her last fight, she finally brings out the Arcanine along with Torkoal, Magcargo, Shiftry, Blaziken, and we even found a home here for Typhlosion. I should also mention here that these final rematches, the 5th fight for each gym leader, has maxed out EVs on top of already perfect IVs. Since basically the 8th gym, you're seeing Pokemon with perfect IVs, but similar to BDSP, now you're going to see Pokemon with EVs maxed out in like the stats that will help them to be even better. Now, Norman has been given some particularly beautiful teams. Going very Johto, his first post-game team sees Aipom, Stantler, Porygon 2, Exploud, Girafarig, and Slacking. Norman 4 then sees more Johto with Granbull, Tauros, Ursaring, Blissey, Girafarig, and Slacking. And finally, the team that really everybody was hoping for, Norman 5 is going to lead with a mixed attacking Leftover Slacking, along with a Skill Swap Quick Claw Blissey as its partner. Skill Swap will attempt to swap Slacking's Truant, so it can now reign unchecked with its legendary stats. Then, after the beefy Tauros, we finally see Smeargle, running the iconic Bellydrum substitutes for Baton Pass set. 5th out is Snorlax with Cursed, Resto Chesto, and last to make its first appearance is Choice Band Zangoose. There's just so much you can do with normal type, and this was by far the coolest set of fights that we were able to craft. Now, Winota 3 sees Xatu, Masquerain, Murkrow, Pidgeot, Mantine, and ever-ready ace Altaria. Winota 4 leads Crobat, Skarmory with Tropius, Dragonite, Swallow, and Altaria. And finally, her 5th and final fight will put Dragonite up front with our boy Yanma. Charizard is also a flying type, so it manages to make it onto this team as well. Now, Tayden Liza's 3rd fight will see Medicham and Claydol, Gardevoir, Exeggutor, and Aces. The twins' 4th fight will lead Resto Chesto Slowking with Calm Mind Slowbro. In this one, we've also got Alakazam and Grumpig. However, their final, and my absolute favorite, we're going to see the lead of a Skill Swap Claydol and an extremely pesky Umbreon. We then add Espeon to add yet another sort of twin dynamic set. Out 4th and 5th become Lunatone and Solrock, and because Metagross is like the joining of 2 Metang, or I guess 4 Beldum, that is actually going to now become their ace. Also, it's psychic type and it's really strong, so it fits the team very well. Now, Wallace won't have a pre-champion rematch since he's already the final gym. And once the player becomes champion, we're going to see Wallace leave Pseudopolis and be replaced by his mentor, Juan. Juan's first of 3 matches is basically a spicier take on his team in Emerald. Instead of Love Disc, the pure water types Huntail and Gorbis lead. He'll see Quagsire as a sub-in for Whiscash, along with Walrein as an upgrade from Celio. Relicanth replaces Crawdonts, and finally Kingdra will finish out the team running its iconic Resto Chesto double team set. Juan's second match is then going to see Mantine and Whiscash lead. Crawdon is added here along with Azumarill and Lantern. Juan's last form then leads with a Whirlpool, Parasong, Politoed, and water type Castform. We've tried our best to put starters where we can, and so along with Walrein and Crawdonts, Blastoise is featured here. And finally, Kingdra goes full troll, running Resto Chesto with not just double team to raise its evasion, evasion, but now also Octazooka to lower your accuracy. Elite Four rematches. So players can re-challenge the Elite Four at any time, but with Sydney's team starting at level 67, it's recommended only after completing the gym leader rematches. And to make the Elite Four even harder and more engaging, we've made this a combination of both singles and double battles. And once again, like BDSP, all Pokemon have perfect IVs with maxed EVs. Now Sydney kicks things off with a double battle, leading a Baton Pass Protected Ninjask and a Pure Offense Shiftry. We thought it would be cool here to sort of complete the Dark type Elemental trio, so we then also add Sharpedo and Houndoom. He also gets an Endure, Flail, Salicberry, Zangoose, while his 69 capped Absol is given Choice Band. Phoebe is next, and she's also a double battle. She leads with both a very annoying Mischievous and even more annoying Wobbuffet. After that, it's Ninetales and Medicham, and finally, with a sort of dual ace system, she finishes with a level 70 Gengar and Dusclops. Now, Glacier brings it back into the singles format with a team focused on having a very average level of 72. She leads Lapras and Piloswine equipped with Hail, along with Glalie, Jinx, Castform, and Walrein. Now, Drake is only averaging slightly higher than Glacia, with 3 Pokemon still at 72, but his ace Salamence bumps up to 75. And we did something really cool for this Drake fight. We gave him one starter from each elemental trio, along with each generation. He leads with Feraligatr, which ties into the team nicely based on its slightly draconic design. Next up is Dragonite with a hilarious set of Black Belt Dynamic Punch. Charizard is then next, needing no explanation as to why it's on the Dragon team. But the final starter here is Sceptile. So on top of being just a really strong Pokemon, it's cool to add here as sort of a nod to its Mega becoming a Dragon type. Now, when the player entered Sydney's room, he'll have explained to the player that Wallace wishes to challenge you for your title. And so these 4 rematches are actually not a re-challenging of the Elite Four at their highest power, but it's rather a warm-up for a title defense. And as you defeat Drake, he will once again make note of this, encouraging you to go on, saying how, there can only be one. And so when you enter the Champions Room, it will now be Wallace who is there to fight you. And keeping to true Wallace champion style, this fight will be a singles battle. And just like Steven, Wallace has actually got the exact same team as his original champion fight. The levels of his team are exactly 20 higher than his original champion team, which interestingly enough is the same level as Emerald's post-game boss. And so basically this roster has just been fine-tuned. Wailord has Quick Claw, Tentacruel has a Salicberry, mostly everything has Rain Dance, Whiscash has Focus Band, Gyarados has Choice Band, and his Milotic has a very devilish combo of Leftovers with Dive, Recover, Toxic, and Light Screen. Upon defeating Wallace, he will then congratulate you and affirm your prowess as reigning champion. But then as you're about to enter the Hall of Fame, your rival will point out that Wallace can't enter due to not being champion. And this was our big opportunity to explain how this sort of shift in champions fits into the storyline. It's here that Wallace will finally explain his rivalry with Steven. He'll explain how their ownership over the title has gone back and forth many times, and that it was this exact rivalry that pushed them to become the 2 strongest trainers in the region. This ties in perfectly to the actual themes of Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. A water-focused trainer and an earth-focused trainer as the perfect rivals. The perfect balance and mirror to the entire Emerald storyline. Now, speaking of which, there's still 2 other trainers that the player can fight. The first is a post-game added Zinnia fight, which I'm just gonna leave there. You can go find her and fight her on your own. But if the player wants to truly take title of the strongest Hoenn trainer, they're going to have to fight Wallace's counterpart. Now, when you find him in Meteor Falls, he'll be surprised that you knew where to look. Steven will, however, accept your challenge and fight you with a team leveled exactly the same as Wallace. And in beating Steven, you, the player, then cement yourself as the strongest trainer in all of Hoenn. Steven will then ask what you're going to do next, and actually rewards you with a little present. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it is with that we not only conclude Emerald Legacy, but the Pokemon Legacy Trio. Now, before we get to how you can play this Romhack yourself, I'm going to credit the entire Emerald Legacy team. So Crystal was a big project and Yellow was more complicated, but neither of those, even together, I think came close to how much work went into Emerald Legacy. First, I want to give a massive shout out to Weebra, who's edited every single Legacy video you've watched, including this one. I also need to give a massive shout out to CRZ Shadow. He's been the lead developer, really managing this whole project, doing the coding, bugs, and just project management. You know, I will certainly accept the title of like being kind of the vision and driving force behind this project, but you know, in reality, I think I might have contributed like 10 to 15% of what this project encapsulated. So another huge thank you goes out to the development team. This is a group that actually started on Crystal Legacy as playtesters, and after 2 games, they knew the whole process so well that they ended up becoming developers of Emerald Legacy. This includes Arrow on team development and Battle Frontier, Izona on development, Reddit modding sprites and the berry system, Zuperzak on sprites and development, Carlos and Reggie on development, and Disc on both development and being the most steadfast playtester I have ever seen, hours into the game, and technically the first person to 386 it. I also need to give huge shoutouts to Janitor, OP Please Nerf, and Obelisk for both playtesting and moderating. Also Sable, Alakadoof, Reader Dragon, Rune, Talos, Tiberius, Solex Cross, and Mogul as playtesters. And also a huge shoutout to our new blind playtesters. Q1, Slifer the Canadian, Awkward, Monkey, Sean Does Stuff, Flints Infernate, Dabrick Shaw 8008, and Revrush, Flashbang, Sam10Q, Elite Grove, and New Tathotap. Also, the biggest shout out ever to the Pret team. This is the group that truly made this entire project possible, assembling the entire Emerald code, which allows people like us to make these projects in the first place. Music credits include Versus Zinnia by Liberty Twins, original composition by Shota Kageyama, and Battle Rival Wally, based on score written by Breadmaster and original composition by Minaka Adachi. Also special thanks to Mogul, Idane, and Nairu62 on just general large picture modding advice. And another special thank you to Joshua, who originally launched the Legacy Discord, which made this entire thing possible. Also, there were so many tutorials and strings of code that we used from other people's ROM hacks, and it's gonna be on screen. All of the people, thank you guys so much. Like I said, you know, Emerald Legacy, you see it, it's the YouTube thing. We say it's the perfect ROM hack. Listen, it's for the titling, it's for the YouTube algorithm. Listen, I do think it's a great ROM hack, but at the end of the day, like just the amount of other people not even related to this ROM that made this ROM possible, like it just, listen, I am the person that does get all the credit for this, but like there's just hundreds of people behind me that deserve credit. So that is everybody. And then thank you, dude, we freaking did it. Legacy Trio, I am pumped. Year-and-a-half long project. It has been a grind. It feels so good. And guys, I hope you enjoyed this one, man, because it had an extra level of effort, love, and just blood, sweat, and tears. As far as future ROMs go, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna focus on just like pumping out some absolute banger videos in the new year. And we have got some more projects in mind, but we're just gonna let that sit for a little bit and simmer, and we'll come back to it maybe in 6 months or something. Now, if you would like to play Emerald Legacy yourself, first you're gonna need to get a legal copy of Pokémon Emerald. Then download the IPS patch file via the link in the description. With your legally acquired copy of Emerald, the IPS is the file you will apply to your copy of Emerald that will change all the details of the game that turns it into Emerald Legacy. So with those 2 files, you next want to click on the link in the description that takes you to the Rom Patcher. The Patcher is the program that will thread these 2 files together. Insert each file into their respective outputs, name the ROM hack Pokémon Emerald Legacy, and apply the patch. You now have a ROM hack as a GBA file and can play it on any GBA emulator. We recommend Delta for iPhone, MGBA for PC, Pizza Boy for Android, or 3DS via Homebrew. Guys, I can't believe we're done, so thank you one last time. It's been real, and I'll see you in 2025. Peace. Now, to enter the giveaway, I think we should just show some appreciation for the team. So to enter, just leave a comment letting the rest of the Legacy team know how the Legacy series has affected you. We'll be picking the winners from every single video very soon. Also, make sure to check out Holzkern via the top link in the description and use code SmithPlays to get 15% off your purchase.